All right, guys, so things are starting to brew up when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 and what Nintendo is forecasting for this system in the first number of months, how it's going to do, the software, and so much more. We're going to talk about that in addition to what is going down with the race to catch the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2 with the Nintendo Switch. We've got updated numbers across the board and big milestones that I definitely want to hit on. That's going to be important to shaping what Nintendo's probably going to do with the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. Very unfortunately for all of those that were thinking that the Nintendo Switch 2 would have a Wii U type of a start, well, that is not the case. There were some people, obviously most people didn't think anything that crazy, but there were some people that were out there saying that it could flop like it, but that doesn't seem to be the case because Nintendo's actually forecasting 15 million Nintendo Switch 2 systems sold in its first year overall. So that goes to March of next year. So not quite one whole year, but just for the whole year in terms of the fiscal year at least. So the 15 million units, that would be from the launch all the way to March. And they're anticipating about 45 million units of software sold. So that would actually eclipse the entire hardware overall of the 13.56 of the Wii U. That would definitely be higher than what they did with the Nintendo Switch. I think Nintendo Switch in the first year was around 14 million units or so, but that launched in March. So it did have a bit of a head start when it comes down to it. So I do think that the 45 million units, the most crazy thing is that if you look at software for the Wii U, they only sold 103 million units of software, and they're estimating here 45 million within that first year or 10 months or something like that. So that's crazy, almost half of what you did on that system. But of course, Wii U is Wii U. Nintendo Switch is a different day, a different time, and a whole different beast because you essentially have to compare, or more like combine, what Nintendo did in the portable realm and the home console realm. So you have to take the Wii U and you have to take the 3DS and you have to put those together because that's what it really was the successor for. It was the successor for both of them. So Nintendo sold around 90 million units of Wii U and 3DS after that generation. So it makes sense that the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2 now at this point have way higher and loftier goals than those systems in the past. With the Nintendo Switch 2, what they're planning on here, it's really going to be based off the software, right? Some people or analysts are saying, hey, that's a bit conservative overall, considering what has been happening with the pre-order surge and the demand and the big games that are coming out. But I think Nintendo is being a little bit conservative overall with their forecast and what they plan to do with the sales. They plan this based off of their internal numbers. So the reason why that they're putting out 15 million, which is a good number, not necessarily like it's a bad number, they're putting out this because they're seeing how many pre-orders are coming in. They've got the numbers. They haven't said anything to us, not at this point, but they have the numbers on pre-orders and they can see the demand and kind of what people are anticipating for this. And of course, they have the software to kind of say, okay, this piece of software is coming out. We think we can move this much. We're going to have this much stock at this point. We're going to try to ramp up production and get more shipped over. Plus, we have the worldwide stuff, right? You have to factor in Japan. You have to factor in what's going on in that country, which a lot of people don't talk about here in terms of the cheaper price of the Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan. Got to factor in some of the higher prices in different European regions and other places as well. So it's definitely interesting overall to see this kind of forecast. But yeah, I think that they're probably going to hit right around that or even above it if things get better. But we have to wait and see about the tariff situation. That's still an ongoing thing that could increase in the future. And Mr. Shuntaro Furukawa, president of Nintendo, even stated that himself, that, hey, look, they might have to raise the price if the tariff situation gets worse. There was that 3-month pause, which allowed them to keep the price in terms of things when it comes to the system itself. But the accessories all got price increases. The amiibo got price increases. So the one thing that I would like to see, I hope that they figure out something when it comes to this whole tariff situation, because it's getting bad for other systems and for other things that are coming in from China and are coming in from other places. So I'm hoping that they get something situated and settled. But yeah, looks like 15 million for right now at this point. overall for the Nintendo Switch 2, and we'll see how things go software and hardware wise overall. But I'm hoping I'm going to see how well it goes overall with all of you guys that are hitting that subscribe button if you have not hit that subscribe button. So hit that sub button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get the best Nintendo Switch 2 content, RPG news, and more. But let's go and get into the next topic here, guys, and we're going to be discussing what is going down with the Nintendo Switch 1, because like I said before, what's happened before can shape what happens in the future. The Nintendo Switch 1 being an overwhelming success definitely got Nintendo to make the Nintendo Switch 2, follow up on that huge success with a iterative system that's going to be what people want, and then some. So the Nintendo Switch 1 is one of the best selling systems of all time. We know this, but it's now officially hit 152.12 million units sold. Now, for historical context, overall, there's only 2 other systems in the history of dedicated video game platforms that has sold more than the Nintendo Switch 1, and that is the Nintendo DS. That's around 2 million units above it. So Nintendo has less than 2 million units to catch the Nintendo DS, which they probably should catch them by later this year, probably. If you're just looking at it, maybe they sell another 500,000 to a million for the next quarter, then of course another 500,000 to a million or so for the following quarter. I think they're probably going to beat that out by the end of the year at the latest. And then after that, you have the PlayStation 2. That's the big one with 160 million units. So they're less than 8 million away from that. Now, I know that Nintendo has probably more than 8 million Nintendo Switch systems left in their inventory. So all they essentially have to do at some point over the next however many number of years, they have to sell out the rest of that inventory. And if they do sell out the rest of that inventory, then it can surpass the PlayStation 2 as the best selling system of all time. Unless Sony decides to raise their numbers out of nowhere. Jim Ryan comes out of retirement, says, all right, we raising this piece up. No, I'm just joking on that one. But yeah, like if they sell the rest of their inventory, they should be good. I mean, once again, this is historical numbers. It is one of those things to where as a consumer, like, hey, look, the sales are the sales. You get more games based off of how a platform is doing. If a platform is doing incredible, you're going to get more sales. And I think that it's even doubly so for Nintendo because they make different type of hardware than Microsoft and Sony's x86 or handheld PCs or things that are just built to work with Steam or stuff like that. So in Nintendo's case, these sales are probably more important than what we see when it comes to getting third-party support than Xbox, for example, because Xbox just makes a system that's very much like PC, very much like the PlayStation 5. So therefore, even if they're not doing as well, developers are still going to support it because it's a much easier port than trying to go over to what Nintendo is doing with ARM and what they're doing with NVIDIA and everything. So when it comes to Nintendo, the sales are definitely important. And obviously with the Nintendo Switch 1, we got a ton of games that did not come to the Wii U, obviously did not come to the 3DS because the sales were so great. So it's definitely good to see, and I want to see that sales success continue with the Nintendo Switch 2 so we can continue to get the support. Even if you look at the start of each system with the Nintendo Switch 1 compared to the Nintendo Switch 2, yes, the specs of the Switch 2 were definitely a huge factor in getting more support at the beginning, but I also think the sales of the Nintendo Switch 1 and how well it did definitely had a lot of the executives and people in charge saying, hey, we don't want to miss out like we did with the Nintendo Switch 1. There were millions of dollars left on the table because developers did not believe after the Wii U and 3DS that the Nintendo Switch 1 would start so hot. And many executives actually even talked about this. There was stuff that was said that saying, hey, we should have supported it better or more. So I don't think they want to take that same chance with the Nintendo Switch 2, which is why we've had so many big third-party games already be announced and a much better lineup when it comes to the launch lineup with third-party titles, stuff like Split Fiction and Cyberpunk and Hitman and even 007 announced, Borderlands 4. There's way more content. Final Fantasy VII Remake, pretty much the whole series is coming over. So that is definitely a good thing. And these incredible sales for the Nintendo Switch 1 help set the table for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think convinced Nintendo that they already have their big gimmick. The Nintendo Switch, the big gimmick of switching between back and forth, being able to play a high quality AAA type of game anywhere that you want, and adding in other gimmicks to it with the Joy-Cons, mouse mode, things like that. That's the great gimmick. That is awesome. You can innovate with software or extensions or accessories like Ring Fit and stuff like that, or Labo. You can try those. And if it works, like Ring Fit. But if it flops, then it flops, and you don't have to worry about the actual system itself being stuck with that flop. So I think that's what they realized with the Nintendo Switch 1, and it makes complete sense. And I think they're going to have a lot of success building off of the back of the Nintendo Switch 1 at this point. I do think that the Nintendo Switch 1 could pass the PlayStation 2 by the end of next year, or maybe the following year, depending on how slow things go and if Nintendo has any discounts or sales on the Nintendo Switch 1 system. But they do have the rest of the inventory there. They just got to sell that out at some point. So we'll see exactly when that happens. But yeah, what do you guys think when it comes to Nintendo Switch 1 officially hitting 152.12 million units sold? Let me know in the comment section. But let's go and move on to another thing with the Nintendo Switch when it comes to the sales data, because we do got the top 10 best-selling Nintendo Switch first-party games, or really just the top 10 best-selling games overall. I don't think there's any other games that have sold better than this on the Nintendo Switch 1. Let's go from the bottom to the top, and then we'll go over some other games as well. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 18.25 million, Super Mario Party at 21.16 million, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at 21.73 million, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield at 26.72 million, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet at 26.79 million, and we do have a passing there. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has now become the second best-selling Pokemon game of all time, and finally passed up Pokemon Sword and Shield. So that's definitely interesting, and the best part about this is that there's finally that performance patch update, the free update that's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. So if you have the Nintendo Switch 2, it should be there at launch. There are some people that are thinking, hey, like, when is this coming? I know Cerebree.net, Joe Merrick, he said that we don't know when it's coming, but Nintendo already listed those 12 games on the site when it comes to free updates, so I'm guessing that those are going to be pretty much right there at launch. Otherwise, they wouldn't have those 12 already listed. So I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet actually has the opportunity and chance to boost its sales even higher before the next Pokemon gen is announced. I would expect Pokemon Scarlet and Violet maybe to tack on another 2, 3, maybe more million and get to 30 million sold overall, and actually threaten what Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow did back in the day. That's the best-selling one with over 31 million units. I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, if this update is good, I think that it can actually get near that amount with the Nintendo Switch 2 update, and more people actually wanting to play it because it's not running so laggy and bad at times. So definitely a good thing for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet if that update is good. Next up at number 5, we have Super Mario Odyssey at 29.28 million, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 32.81 million, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 36.24 million. I want to briefly speak on that because it's actually really cool to see a fighting game sell this much. There's been no other fighting game that's ever hit this type of number, so it's just awesome to see that, and you can bet that there is another Super Smash Bros. Game in development right now at this point. Some people are saying, oh, Masahiro Sakurai, he's working on Kirby, he's not working on Smash. I don't think so. He's working on Super Smash Bros. Kirby, Air Riders, that's a smaller game. My man is multi-talented. He can definitely direct and work on multiple things, and that's exactly what's happening. I fully expect a new Super Smash Bros. Game to be announced sometime either at the very end of this year or probably more like next year and launching that year, or announced next year and launching the following year. But Nintendo likes to have Smash Bros. Out early in the life of a system because it is a true blue system seller. All right, coming in at number 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons at 47.82 million, which is just outstanding for Animal Crossing. And of course, number 1, the Eternal Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 68.20 million units. I can see that actually hitting 70 million units on Switch by itself when it's all said and done. Although we do have Mario Kart World coming out next month, which is going to be huge with the bundle in addition to the game itself. But yeah, those are all the top 10 numbers there. Went over the ones that were kind of interesting to go over more. We also have a couple other numbers to go over as well. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD hit the 1.27 million. Unfortunately, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition came out at the end of the month and didn't hit that 1 million yet, but I'm guessing that it's actually very close and we could see it at the next financial report. Next up is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD at 1.88 million, Mario and Luigi Brothership at 1.97 million, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, the remake, at 2.10 million. Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom breaks 4 million units sold at 4.09 million. Super Mario Party Jamboree hits 7.48 million. Mario Party Superstars hits 14 million, and Nintendo Switch Sports is at 16.27 million. Definitely the surprise hit of Nintendo's launch when it comes down to it. Nobody expected that Nintendo Switch Sports would sell 16 million units and be near potentially a top 10 best-selling game overall. I still feel that Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I think that could actually break into the top 10 eventually by the end of the year with those bundled sales continued in there. And I do think that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that could actually pass up Pokemon Sword and Shield in the long run with people picking up that game with the Switch 2 system. So overall, great sales. Nintendo has sold over 1.39 billion units of software, which is just incredible. So yeah, I think this is all going to kind of roll into the Nintendo Switch 2. You got backwards compatibility, you got all these games that you can play on the next system. Some of them have updates, some of them have Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So it's all good when it comes down to gaming. So what do you guys think about these updated Nintendo Switch game sales numbers? You can let me know in the comment section below. But that's going to wrap it up for this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out all my Nintendo Switch 2 content and more right here on screen. Like this video going over what the most important factor for the Nintendo Switch 2 is. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.